universe is calling you. The universe is calling me. It speaks both day and night. It's full of dark and light.
Hello and welcome to Sky Tour Radio. For those that think that maybe this is just another replay, you're wrong. This is live for today, April 23rd, 2023, and we have Daryl down here. Hi, Daryl. How are you?
Howdy. Hello, Mark. Hello, Tara.
And
Hi,
we have
everybody.
Tara over there as well. Hi, Tara. How are you? Good to see you.
You too. Hi, Daryl. Hi, everyone. Glad to be here. It's been a while.
It's gonna be a wonderful night. We're gonna. When I started putting the show together, I started realizing there's so much that we have to talk about. So I hope you're all ready to dive in, because I know I am.
Yep.
Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy. So here's the thing. Okay, we've got a ton of amazing objects that the James Webb Space Telescope has seen. And we talked about some of them the other day, or the last time we got in on the air. But, there's a lot more now. And we're going to go through the list and check them out. And I think you guys are going to like this. You've seen them. Some of you have seen these before. Many of you listening have seen some of these before, probably in the news. But we're going to talk about them in depth. And that's pretty cool. Before we do that, I just want to say, welcome. And if you guys aren't familiar, we also run a series of observatories around the country. I have one active one in Arizona right now, and we have one here in Connecticut, which is going back in soon, and we have a third one that's going out in Arizona. And of course, Tara over there is one of the movers and shakers in that organization, SkyTourLivestream.org, and she is here. Daryl is one of the co-hosts, in fact, with us on Sky Tour Livestream. It's like all things Sky Tour, right?
Awesome. Yes.
Cool. Yeah.
It's the whole idea, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Hello. Yeah, he's right.
Hey, it's working.
We should just give the third telescope to Tara.
Oh,
Okay.
well, yeah, but then she'll have to be able to stream on any night we ask her to.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
I'll do my best. Okay.
Yeah.
Darn.
So the thing that's neat about this is that going back and looking at how it all happened, and I'm not going to go through all of it, obviously, but I remember sticking a little yellow flag in the ground out on the property. And I might have shown you this flag before, and I'm not going to show you now, but I just stuck it in the property, and it was on a patch of dirt out in the desert. And it was on 5 acres of land that had been cleared specifically to make it usable land, including land for an observatory. It wasn't mine. Okay, it belonged to another landowner and a good friend. And so that yellow flag stayed in the dirt for months. So much so that the next time I came out, I could visit my little yellow flag sitting out there in the dirt. And I looked at it and went, someday you'll be a thing. I'm not even sure what that thing is going to look like yet, but it's going to have a telescope inside of it. And I'm going to make an observatory here, and we are going to access it remotely from thousands of miles away or anywhere in the world. And then we started a GoFundMe, and the GoFundMe was wildly successful. And it brought enough money to make the building, buy the telescope, and put it in. And before you know it, I was standing on a concrete slab. Tara was there. You remember Tara?
I do. Ta-da, you were there.
I think you took a photo of me with my hands out looking at the sky. And I believe the landowner was standing right next to you. And we got that really nice picture. And it's like, and that was the beginning. And then the building started after that. Now, I wasn't here for the build. I wasn't there for the building because COVID hit and there was a telepresence thing required. I couldn't get out there at the time. So I had to watch through a phone and, Tara or Marianne, Rob would be out there with a phone, just pointing it at the guys constructing, saying, "Is this what you want them to do?" Kind of a thing. And then Tara acted as the, I would say, foreman of the job, and she would actually just go to town telling them what was needed.
That's
It was
right.
like I was listening to myself, because she was did such a nice job. And yeah, if I've
That's
never said
fun.
that publicly, let it be said now.
Thank you.
Okay. And
You said.
and then with Daryl's talent, okay, Daryl joined us to be a co-host. He'd been with us earlier, but he joined to be a co-host. And Daryl is an astronomer's astronomer, as I call him, and then he'll always go, "Oh, see," but it's true. Okay.
I was with you before you ever built the observatory in
You were.
Arizona.
Yeah, that's what I just said. Yeah, you were there before, and then we built the observatory in Arizona. I remember there were nights when we didn't have all the components in place, guys. And so what we would do is I would have the telescope aligned so that it knew where it was looking in the sky. But before we had the ability for the telescope to calculate for itself where it was looking in the sky, because that's what they have to do. I mean, if you're going to run them remotely, we had nights where we lost that information. And I had to restart the telescope and hunt for something in the sky by moving it up and down, left and right, until I found something we knew. Remember that, Daryl? We would do that a few times.
Oh yeah,
That's incredible.
that was actually tons of fun because
It was.
we found a lot of stuff that when we found it we didn't know what it was, but we learned what it was, and
Yeah. Like the
we-
Dark Horse Nebula, the Seahorse Nebula.
Cool.
we
And
made a lot
found-
of discoveries.
We did, and it was kind of fun, and that happened during the summer. And one of the things that I tried to look for was the star Antares in Scorpius. And if I found Antares, I knew it was Antares because just to the west of it was a globular cluster called Messier 4. And if I saw both of those, I knew it was Antares, and then I could set the coordinates for Antares. And that was doing it manually. Now we've added, well, not now, but gosh, over, I think it's 2 years ago now, we added the technology for the telescope to look at any star field at all and figure out where it was looking. Okay, that's called plate solving. So in other words, for this square image, you have stars. Dot, dot, dot. There, you see them all? Can you see the stars? No. Okay, well, you see these stars in here, for instance, and those stars became a pattern that the telescope could recognize, a program running behind the scenes, I should say. And so the telescope would know where it was based on that. So once we added plate solving, Daryl and I didn't have to go hunting around for an object we knew. But that was fun anyway. And I have a feeling that we're going to do that again, Daryl. We're going to just start hunting through the sky and seeing what's there, because that's the joy of discovery. So
It was, and I mean that's like astronomy in its purest form. I think
it is. What's in the telescope view now?
it's the discovery aspect of it.
Yep. And so we'll do that on one of our next live streams. And maybe after later on tonight, if it's clear out there, we'll actually do it again. We'll do it.
Cool.
So, but we'll go on a voyage of discovery. It's going to be sliding through the summer, spring sky, and see what we find. And I won't even care where we're looking. We'll just go looking and see what happens. Now, that's
There's
kinda
always
fun.
something to learn.
There is always something to see. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So, and that's Sky Tour live stream. That's our telescope system. We have people come in from all over the world. We have a Patreon. Please support our Patreon. That Patreon is how we get to keep going, frankly. I'll tell you a little thing that happened on YouTube. I actually have music that plays in the background, and that music was free, and you didn't have to give any attribution. In other words, say where it came from. All right. And as I learned just this past few days, all that previously free music is now royalty music. Now you have to pay for it. And how do you pay for it? They take your revenue. All right. And that really kind of incensed me. All right. Because that's like, that should be illegal. It should be grandfathered in. So I was concerned about that. And that really, really bothered me. And I don't want to have to deal with that. That's like lower than low. When the company says after you have had these videos with their music on them for a year or 2 years, and they were free, you don't have to, you can use them for free, and you don't have to say where they came from. that's wonderful. That's free, truly public domain music. And then for them to suddenly pull the rug out and say, "Oops, sorry, we're going to claim a copyright now because this music now is going to cost you. And to get our money, we're going to just steal the revenue you're making on the video."
And that's YouTube?
That's YouTube doing that now.
Mhm.
Well, that's this company. We Are Era Music is the name of the company.
Mm.
So I wrote 3 out of the 4 people that run the company already, and I'm going to find out what happens. But I will badmouth them and say really rotten things about them until something happens. So anyway, that said,
Hopefully,
There you go.
hopefully they don't boot your butt.
well, no, they're not YouTube, okay. But the bottom line is that these folks, that offer free stuff, they can't just start charging for it after you've already included it and say, "Oh, well, now you owe us because you've been using our music." No, that's not the agreement. That never was how it was. So we'll see.
Didn't we
But-
always learn there's no such thing as a free lunch?
That's right.
Okay.
And Staple. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch.
That's right. Mhm.
Well,
Sometimes people learn that the hard way.
Yeah.
Well,
I think
there's an
we all do.
upshot. There's an upshot to this because what
Okay.
I've done is I've got all new music and it's all royalty free
Awesome.
without attribution required. And I'm going to use this new music, and I actually like it a lot better.
Great.
Right? Yeah, because I got used to hearing this other music. Yeah. Charles says, bait and switch. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what I kept saying in my head over and over, Charles.
Hmm.
But
I don't
No.
get to hear the music anyway, so there.
I know you don't, because we last time we tried to include the music so you could hear it, you had trouble because my voice would get knocked out by the music at times, and I tried to avoid. So you're on a totally separate track. You're on a separate track down there. You're over here and I'm over there. Okay. That's all right. So, folks, if you haven't guessed, the Sky Tour live stream is this wonderful tour of the night sky, taken with our currently only have 1 telescope in Arizona that we're running, but we're going to have 2 out in Arizona in the next several months. And
Yay.
you're going to see both of those at the same time on the screen, and you're going to see one that's a zoomed in view and a wide angle view, looking at the same object. So just imagine going to an object like a beautiful globular cluster, and you see it in a frame this big, and there's a tiny little thing here with lots of stars, and then you zoom in and see it this big on the screen.
Cool.
And you see them both at the same time. So we're going to be having 2 telescopes, one that has a very a long focal length, it's called, and a short focal length. Long focal length means more magnification. Short focal length means wider field of view.
Okay.
Our current telescope has a 2 degree by 1.5 degree field. That's 4 full moons across and 3 full moons tall size field. That's a lot of sky.
It's huge.
And that's why we had so much fun, Daryl, because we would actually go cruising through the sky and we had 2 degrees of stuff to look at all in every one shot.
Oh, yeah.
It actually made it easier to find things we were trying to actually find.
Yep. Well, we all we had to do was swing east until we found the Milky Way and find the edge of the Milky Way, and then we would turn and head north or south and find all sorts of amazing things along the way.
That's right. That's right. I kind of like that. I think because that reminds me of when I was a kid looking through the sky with my telescope. I would just move it and see, wow, look at that star field. And I'm going to admit something to you guys. I used to have a TV in my room, in my childhood room in my house. And I took black paper, okay, and I cut it to the size of the TV screen. And I put it over the TV screen, taped it all around so there was nothing you could see. I'd make pinholes. There's pinholes all over it. And now I would sleep next to what looked to me like a spaceship window that I was looking out of all night. And beautiful stars on the screen all night long. And because the screen is, of course, got static on it, because I went to like in between channels with the sound off, the stars were flickering. And it looked pretty cool. That's very interesting. So, and the other weird thing I did was in that same room, this got my mother pretty angry. I took out my Scalenate Pleso. Daryl knows what that is. The Scalenate
Star Atlas.
Star Atlas, that's right. And it comes in like 14 or 16 sheets, big cardboard sheets, and you'd have all of the constellations and objects in it for the whole sky. Well, not just the northern sky. Well, anyway, I took that and I used it as a model to paint 3,000 stars on my bedroom ceiling over 4 days. Okay. I stayed in that room for literally almost the whole 4 days. I blocked out all the windows with sheets and blankets and made it really dark in there so I could still see. Why dark? Because I was doing it with glow in the dark paint. And I made these glow in the dark stars overhead. So
Cool.
realistic that the combination of all the tiny dots I made from a distance gave you the view of the Milky Way.
Oh,
Okay.
fun.
Yeah. And the roof went like this. It went flat and then it tapered down at the wall because it was what's called a dormer. So it had a slanted roof at one end. And so that was where the horizon was. And I put trees on the horizon by making lots of stars, but strategically leaving out where the limbs were. So they were effectively blocking it. So what you got was a reverse silhouette of the trees on this little horizon. So you could, and the thing was, anyone that came up into my room, okay, had the bright lights on or daylight, okay, and then when it was nighttime, I bring them back and say, okay, you ready? Look up. And they look up and suddenly their brain says there's a ceiling there, but their mind, what they're seeing with their eyes, is telling them there's no roof. And everyone that looks up gets dizzy because suddenly their brain is trying to figure out ceiling, stars in the distance. It gives you a real disoriented feeling, and because it's so real. And you would end up having to lay on the floor. And I remember many times just laying down on the floor and looking up at my universe. And I painted the winter sky in the ceiling. So we had the winter Milky Way. I had Orion, I had the Orion Nebula. And of course, the Orion Nebula and Orion were down on that little slant. So it was partially into the trees.
Cool.
Okay, so to speak. So so now I think it's time to stop talking about that because it makes me want to go paint the ceiling in here. Okay.
We still all go paint the ceilings. Let's all go do that.
Let's see. Where is James Webb News? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Ray. Okay. So that's what the show is, Ray. Get with the times and deal with it. Okay. This is called the introductory monologue. Look how shows are made. So anyway, so if you get a chance, it's skytourlive.org. I would love to have you join us at skytourlive.org. Okay. This is our portal right there. skytourlive.com, which is also skytourlive.org. And you can join us there, see everything we've done. You can go find the beautiful images that we've taken.
Yeah.
Okay. And just check them out. They're wonderful to see. Okay. Now, if you join our Patreon, we have multiple tiers. You get really cool stuff for each tier level. All right. So that's kind of neat. You also get some of the highly processed imagery that we have, which I think you'll really enjoy. And so anyway, you can do that for as low as $5 a month. Okay. So
Very
I think
cool.
it's a wonderful idea. Yeah, it's wonderful. All right. So that said,
Can I
tonight.
mention something real quick?
Yeah, please do.
Folks, be on the lookout if you're at least in the northern half of the country, or maybe even if you're in the southern half, and your weather's good, go out and look tonight. Check spaceweather.com. There was a big halo coronal mass ejection a couple of days ago, and it's due to hit Earth either tonight or early tomorrow morning. And you may have heard that we had a huge show of northern lights, auroras, recently, that they saw them all the way down like in New Mexico and the southern U.S., and we may have a repeat of that overnight tonight or tomorrow morning.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. We have a lot of wonderful people watching and listening to us right now. I want to say hello to all of you. I can't go by name right now, but thank you so much for coming out and seeing us. And we will see you soon. Hopefully tonight we'll get to do a stream. And that'll happen right after we get off the air at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Right. So one thing I'm going to give you an update on the show. The proof is out there. I'm their one of two image analysts that the show has on History Channel, and normally they come out here 2 times a year, and we do 20 stories roughly. Well, this show is actually up and coming. So if you get a chance to watch History Channel's The Proof is Out There, all right, you have to check it out, because not just because I'm in it, okay, but because it's a fair assessment of the actual data that's being submitted by people, viewers, much like yourself, to the show. And this time when they came out, they signed me for 40 stories, not 20. Awesome. So the show's doubled in size. Okay. And so it's getting a lot of critical acclaim, all good news. So I think that it's worth checking it out. All right. So next on the list, I want to talk about I think I mentioned the telescope update out there, but what I want to say is a little discussion about what focal length is, because the focal length of a telescope determines things like field of view, magnification, best magnification that's used, the highest useful magnification, things like that, and more. But and Daryl knows a lot about these things too. So the current telescope we have, when we bought it from the store, we bought it from the place, it has a focal length of 2,032 millimeters. Now, what is 2,032 millimeters? Well,
80 inches.
That's right.
Pretty big.
But it's also the distance from when light enters the telescope to where it actually ends up focusing to your eye. That's the actual physical distance that it goes. All right. And that's a focal length. And we added a system on our telescope out west that actually shortcuts it and changes that focal length down to 500 millimeters roughly. And that 500 now changes everything about the way the telescope works. That's why a telescope that we have, this telescope would actually have a field that was less than the size of the full moon normally. And now, or just about the size of the full moon. And it is now 4 full moons across and 3 full moons tall, as I mentioned. So we've added that system to this, and instead of running at what's known as a photographic ratio of f8, okay, remember on the cameras you have 5.6, you have 8, you have et cetera, then you have 16 and 22, sometimes even 32, okay, on the barrel of the camera. Okay, right. Those are the f-stops, right? Well, you know that when you go to f22 on your camera, that the opening closes down really small. So not a whole lot of light can come in through that little tiny hole each time. All you see is my eye. Okay, well, at f2, which is what we're running, a lot of light comes in. At f8, not a whole lot comes in. But you get some, obviously, you get a good deal. And it's like a compromise, but we're running at f2. So that means that we get a lot of light. It's a big wide field. So our stars, the bright stars, always have these big halos around them. And that's kind of, it just comes to the territory. But for that, we get gorgeous images. So when you join us, you'll see. So
can I add in there for a second?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. What Mark is saying, if you use a camera, like with interchangeable lenses, telescope is simply a telephoto lens. Okay, it's a long focal length lens. And with the camera, if you want a short focal length, you just change the lenses. And that'll give you f2 that way. With like a normal lens in the old days of 35 millimeter, a 50 millimeter f2 lens would give you a nice wide open field. But it's just taking a telephoto lens and turning it into a wide field lens.
Cool.
Yeah. And that's what we've done with the telescope out west. And yeah, at some point maybe we'll discuss the mechanics of how we made it a remote system that I can run from over 2,500 miles away.
Yeah.
Because And the other thing is June 2 through 4, I'm going to be at Indian Wells, California at Contact in the Desert, that conference. And one of the things I'm going to do besides a lecture is a Sky Tour live stream live with a studio audience observatory session. So it's going to be kind of fun. Yeah, it'll be fun. Yeah. And then at Roswell, in the end of the month, June 30th through July 2nd, I will be doing a talk down there, as well as doing a live Sky Tour live stream observatory session. So this is going to be really cool. You know, it's a very interesting concept to actually do it in public when the telescope is thousands of miles away or hundreds of miles away. So that's kind of new ground. It's going to be kind of fun to explore that.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it will. So now, yeah, it will. Now, before we go on, I just want to say thank you for those that are patient with me, getting ready to jump into tonight's topics. And Daryl will be doing his deep dive later, as we always do. And Tara may have some questions for us too, which you're always allowed to ask, along the way. Just
okay.
So you know.
All right. Good deal.
And then Tuesday, I will be on the radio station WPLR, which is a statewide radio station here. It's actually heard all over the country. And they're going to have me on as MUFON's chief photo and video analyst, looking and talking about certain UFO cases that they've seen.
Fun.
So that's going to be fun. That'll be Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. I'm an astronomer, so as you can tell, it's probably going to be a tough morning for me.
It's pretty early, huh?
No streaming Sunday night, right? Oh, wait. Yeah, okay, Tuesday. That's Tuesday, not Monday. So that's I can stream tonight. That's right. Okay, so anyway, so now one of the things that we've discovered and seen in the universe is that the James Webb Space Telescope has done some really, really phenomenal stuff. And one of them, and we've got a dog barking in the background. She doesn't have a mute button. That's kind of a problem, isn't it?
Live radio.
Live radio, I don't mind. It's all right. People have dogs. They accept it. Okay. Having a dog in the studio, look, it's a companion.
Lucky.
Right? I was here all day working on this. So, Dingo, come here. Who else has a dog named Dingo, right? Dingo, come here. Want to be on the radio? Want to say hi to people?
Dingo's ate my baby.
And
maybe
it turned out that was true. A dingo did eat her baby.
Yeah.
In reality. Dingo, come here. So she was right here under my feet just a moment ago. So
what's she barking at?
Oh, I don't know. A bunch
of UFO
bags and masks. In any case, this object we're looking at here on the screen, this is neat because this is called the Pandora cluster. Now, you'll notice that there's a box in the middle of the screen, two boxes. And then on the left side, you see one box that has a 1 in it. All right. And then on the right side, you see another box that has a 2 in it. Well, those correspond to these two inset boxes that you see here.
Oh, okay.
Now, what's interesting about box number 1 and box number 2 is that those two galaxies you're seeing there are one of the things that are upsetting cosmologists, Daryl, like you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about that in a minute. So
I assume the Z is a redshift.
Exactly. So the James Webb Space Telescope can see galaxies that are much further away than any other, and better than any other telescope we've ever had. Way better than Hubble by quite a lot, actually. And the reason is because of the way light works and the way the James Webb works. The James Webb is an infrared telescope. Now we have the visible spectrum. That's the spectrum that we see with our eyes, right? And when we see the visible spectrum, let me see if I can migrate this to something else here. Yeah, it's not letting me. Okay, so I'll say it this way: when we have the visible spectrum, we see red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Okay, kind of like my lights, right? We got the blue lights there. I got a red light up over there. Okay, part of our spectrum. Well, the The James Webb sees out past the red end of the spectrum. It doesn't see in the visible light. It only sees the infrared light. Well, you're familiar with infrared as heat. Okay. Well, that's only one aspect of the infrared. The infrared goes way, way out, further than your eye can see, and further out than the heat waves you normally see. And
all the way to radio.
That's correct. And microwaves and beyond. It's really cool. And so
It's warm.
that's right. Now, how does that work? Well, when light moves fast, when light moving fast, it moves at the speed of light, 186,282 miles per second, roughly 7 times around the Earth in a second, if you can make it do so.
Okay.
So kind of slow. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so that's how fast light moves. But if you're the light of a galaxy, as the galaxy is moving away from us, okay, everything in the universe is moving away from each other because, of course, the Big Bang, right? Well, Edwin Hubble discovered that the further away a galaxy is, the faster it moves away from us. That's called a recessional velocity, but don't even worry about that. It moves faster the farther away it is. Faster, farther. And that speed does something to the light. And we've discovered that when an object is moving away from us at a high speed, its light is shifted toward the red end of the spectrum. And that's called redshift. And similarly, when something's moving toward us at a speed, the light is shifted toward the blue end of the spectrum. So we have blue shift and red shift. Okay, blue shift as it's coming toward us, red shift as it's going away. So we're noticing that the galaxies going away from us have this massive red shift to them in their light. Okay, now that red shift can be so great that the entire light of an entire galaxy, all the stars, all the nebulae, everything going on inside that galaxy can be shifted right out of the visible spectrum that you can see with your eyes and literally be out in the infrared. Okay. And so Hubble could see some of those galaxies. However, the James Webb was able to see many more of these galaxies. Okay. And when I brought this up, okay, that box number 1 in the center, box number 2 are showing you 2 galaxies that are red. They're kind of reddish right there. These are the farthest objects ever seen in our universe.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah. And so that shift of the light manifests itself as a reddening of the light. Okay. And objects, like I said, moving toward us will be bluified, right? Have their light made to look blue. So when this happens, this galaxy cluster, the Pandora cluster, we're seeing these galaxies. Many of these galaxies, of course, are shifted entirely into the red. But the farthest ones ever seen today are those captured in this galaxy cluster and shown in the insets 1 and 2.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you give a simple explanation for what that redshift number transfers into velocity-wise, like as a percentage of the speed of light itself?
There's an equation to do that, and I'm not going to put it up, but yes, there is a redshift equation. He's talking about the Z value, guys. You see Z approximately 10.5, Z approximately 12.5. Okay. And that would be not a whole show, but it'd be a good part of a show to get that right, Daryl. But that's actually a very good question.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
So these galaxies, these oldest galaxies that they found, what did they discover about the shapes of them? And was that anything remarkable?
In fact, Terry, you hit it right on the head. Okay, the shapes of these galaxies, as discovered, are what are causing cosmologists to stand on their own heads. Okay, because we're noticing that these galaxies that you see, tiny as they are fully developed galaxies. They're fully developed.
Well, they're old, wouldn't they be?
No, see, they were looking. Go ahead, Daryl.
Isn't the idea that they're seeing fully developed spiral galaxies far earlier than current cosmological models say they should even
Exactly.
exist.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, okay, for instance, okay, this galaxy, these galaxies here that you're seeing are so close to where the Big Bang occurred around 13.6 billion years ago. 13.8 billion years ago is how old the galaxy or the universe was thought to be. Okay. You're seeing these fully formed galaxies that are 350 million years old. And so 350 million years after the Big Bang is when they actually became fully formed.
Right.
Now that changes everything. We didn't think the galaxies could form in just a few 100 million years. Okay. But here we see fully formed galaxies. So this is crucial. In fact, it is a problem because of the fact that it offers up two major problems. Okay. How can this be? And there's two reasons. Number one, maybe we got it wrong. Maybe the universe is much older than we realize. Okay. Or maybe galaxies form much more quickly than we understood to this point. Clearly, there's something to that, isn't there? Right? Well, let me explain to you what the rest of the problem is. Here's why it's such a conundrum. The reason is because we discovered that the universe is accelerating as it's expanding.
Right.
Okay. Now, wait a minute. That means if it was accelerating as it's expanding, then Hubble's constant of expansion was not a constant. It was changing all the time, which means that we were basically reverse engineering the age of the universe based on Hubble's constant and what we saw for redshifts and so forth. Well, that would imply that the universe is younger than we thought. But this data here that we see is showing us that the universe may be older than we thought. What? Okay, that's the issue. See, that's part of the issue. So as you can see, there are so many problems, so many issues with these discoveries. And without James Webb, we wouldn't have all of these bald cosmologists out there pulling out their hair. So you see, so Terry, you hit it right on the head when you asked about the galaxies being, is the shape important? It absolutely is. In fact, it caused the major problem.
That's amazing.
There, as I understand cosmology, the theory, after the Big Bang, the universe was so hot that everything was incandescent.
Plasma.
And it was not transparent, and we couldn't see through it. And then all of a sudden, we're seeing these fully formed galaxies that are so much older than theory says they should be. Would that date back to when the universe became transparent? Perhaps they formed before the transparency occurred.
Well, the problem with that theory, if our theories are correct, is that there were no atoms at that point, just fundamental particles at that point.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the idea, right? So if there were only fundamental particles, then we couldn't have atoms to make up the dust and the hydrogen atom, which is a nucleus of a proton and an electron, and thus get, that to occur and make fusion of hydrogen nuclei and so forth, and then make galaxies and so forth, as you point out. But it is, again, it's all a conundrum, isn't it? But now you see the problem. The accelerating, expanding universe would tell us that the universe is younger. And then we see this image that shows us galaxies way back just after the Big Bang, which says maybe we got it wrong. The universe is older, younger. Make up your mind, right? And that's part of the problem.
I have a follow-up question, please.
Sure, please do.
Daryl, you talked about like the universe became transparent. That's an interesting term. And is that when the dark dust collapsed or created stars? I mean, what changed? Was it?
I can actually answer that, and if you want to take it there, you can. But what happened was, when they say that it was opaque, what it meant was that the universe was so hot that you basically just had plasma from these fundamental particles. But as it cooled, then the plasma was no longer a loose electrons flying around, which is a fundamental particle, or a proton made of 3 quarks, which is flying around, but the electron and the single nucleus proton would combine and form a hydrogen atom. So when the universe became more transparent, that corresponds to the time when atoms started to form, when the universe was cooler, in the theory. But now, I mean, 25 years from now, we listen to this broadcast again, and they'll say, God, that guy was so stupid. How could he say such stupid things? We may not know, but right now, that is what we know. And so, but the transparency came about when the universe cooled and particles could actually form, atoms could actually form. And that made the universe transparent, which meant that we could now actually, this is the other part, see the light from the very beginning. And this is the part where we actually see the cosmic microwave background. Because when the universe was opaque, nothing got out. Nothing got out. No light came to us, so to speak, because there was no us at that point, but no light got out of that area at all. But as it started to get cooler and it got translucent, atoms were made, then light could leak out. And when it started to leak out, that's where the cosmic microwave background, the CMB, is seen. And that's what we see. That's the remnant of the Big Bang. That's why they call it the remnant of the Big Bang.
And when it first became transparent, I mean, it wasn't a few degrees above absolute zero. It was still incredibly hot.
Oh, yeah.
It's just that the universe has cooled off with the expansion so much that the temperature of the microwave background now is down just a few degrees above absolute zero.
Just about 3. Yeah.
Wow.
That's right.
Wow.
And that's pretty cool. See, so that's how that all works. Now, it's interesting. And that, by the way, so this is just the first James Webb Space Telescope discovery we've been talking about.
Very cool.
And already it branches off into forming new theories about cosmology and how the universe began, right? So that's pretty neat. Now, another one that I really think is so cool is this one.
Ooh.
This is called the Cartwheel Galaxy.
Oh, yeah.
And this image of the Cartwheel and its companion galaxies is a composite from the near-infrared camera, the NIRC camera, and the mid-infrared instrument. So the NIRC is the one that makes these little diffraction spikes that you see in the stars. Daryl pointed that out before we got on the air. But then the mid-infrared shows you the dust and the other stuff in there. So NIRCam shows you the pinkish glow, and MIRI shows you additional glow and all the stuff in between as well. Now, look at this galaxy. Isn't it weird how you actually see that the galaxy, the big one, actually has spiral arms, but then on the outside you have this ring?
Yeah,
right?
the white ring
cool?
around it. Yeah,
It's like a ring, right? It's like a steering wheel. Yeah, Daryl talks about steering wheel galaxies and so forth like that when we do our Skytra live streams. Well, this is not one of those. All right, but it's made of 2 rings. There's a bright inner ring and a colorful outer ring that we're seeing right there. You see the bright ring right near the nucleus, and then we see the nucleus, and then there's a little dark ring, and then a brighter ring. And then it goes to spiral arms, and then there's an outer ring.
Right.
So how did that happen? Well, we think that this was due to a very rapid collision with another galaxy. And we're seeing it is a snapshot in time, right? We're seeing a snapshot in time of this collision. And so that ring on the outside is actually an expanding shock wave from the collision.
Oh.
Okay. So this large spiral galaxy, still has its rotating spiral arms as before. And those are the spokes that we're seeing in the cartwheel. And then the red streaks that you see, that's really interesting because those red streaks between the inner and outer rings are cool. Those brilliant red hues, are throughout the cartwheel. And it turns out that much of what they are is, and again, this is thanks to MIRI, is hydrocarbon-rich dust. So in other words, the building blocks of life were made in this galactic collision. And those red streaks you see, the redder streaks actually in there, along with the spiral arms, those are hydrocarbon dust concentrations.
it's interesting that you see some professional observatory images or Hubble images of galaxies, and the spiral structure is not evident, or not very evident, if at all.
Right.
And yet, some of the new Webb images show that there is indeed a lot of spiral structure going on inside.
That's right. That's right. Because the MIRI instrument, the mid-infrared imager on James Webb, has the ability to showcase that dust that might be in a galaxy, and that dust is something that might go unnoticed with a Hubble image, or it's buried within star clouds and not as easy to see. But you can actually see all the way to the core of a galaxy and see the detail of what's happening inside the galaxy that way. Now,
I have
go
a
ahead, Tara.
question on that. I heard that didn't the Webb find like a star in the Ring Nebula that they didn't know was there in the center? I mean, there's things in the center of these galaxies that they're not knowing are there, and
Well, I think it might not be the ring. It might be the
southern ring, maybe the southern Ring Nebula.
ring.
Yes, I think you're right.
They thought
For
there was
sure.
one star, and there's actually two.
It was a binary down there.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
Yeah, we actually talked about it. It's one of our objects here last time we did James Webb.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, that's a very cool finding. Again, without James Webb, we wouldn't have known it. No way we would have known that. Now, we don't just look at galaxies. We don't just look far away. Yes, the Webb was built to see far away and long ago. In short, that's what it is. Far away and long ago. That's what the Webb's for. However, it doesn't mean we won't be looking locally and nearby. Okay. And such is the case here. Okay. This is the moon Titan around Saturn. And what's fascinating about the James Webb is with its resolution, you can actually see details on the surface of Titan. Okay, this was captured in infrared with a 2.12 micron filter, which is sensitive to Titan's lower atmosphere, down below. And the bright spots are the dust clouds in the northern hemisphere, okay, that you see on the left side there. Okay, and then the right, you can actually see them as well. Now, the color composite image uses the combination of the NIRCam, the near-infrared camera filters, and it does blue, green, and red amounts as part of that. And then you can actually see the several surface features are actually labeled here on here. You can see, for instance, Belet, B-E-L-E-T right here. That's to the lower right of the right-hand image there. It's pointing to a dark patch. That's actually an area of dark-colored sand dunes on Titan. And then Adiri is a bright albedo feature, meaning a bright feature that is bright on the surface, and you can see to the right at around the 3 o'clock position on the right-hand image. You can see that as well. And then you can actually see how the surface of Titan actually looks. And you have kind of it's been color corrected, obviously, because remember, we're looking at all in the infrared, so way out into the red end of the spectrum and far beyond. Technically, all these images would be red, but they've been color corrected for what you'd see if you could see it in the visible spectrum for your eyes. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So we don't just look far away and long ago. We also look at nearby and now. And that's what's really cool about the James Webb. We can do all of that, So the James Webb has been just methodically making life very different and very difficult for cosmologists, astronomers, and astrophysicists alike. I promise. So one of the other things that we saw, and the Hubble Space Telescope created a shot and took a shot in the heart of Messier 16, which is called the Eagle Nebula. Now, we've looked at the Eagle Nebula, and it has these remarkable pillars that are in it. What do they look like? Well, they look like this. Okay?
Oh, it's so pretty.
These are the pillars of creation, as they're called. Okay, and these pillars of creation, as shot by Hubble, were astonishing. When we saw these, we were like, "Holy cow! This is the most amazing thing," and it was, wasn't it? Okay, and this is a Hubble shot. Yeah, and it's a Hubble shot. So the question becomes, well, what about the James Webb? Well, James Webb pointed its near infrared camera at the pillars of creation, and it captured this view, which was released
Ooh.
relatively recently. You compare the two. This is Hubble, all right, which is a beautiful false color image. And then you have this one with near infrared, all right?
Which
and
is false color too, right?
yes, it is. Yeah. And then you look at this, you say, well, there's some gas in here and there's dust in here. Well, if you want to see dust, that's when we go to MIRI, the mid-infrared instrument, and check out this ghostly looking nebula. Isn't that
Oh my
cool?
gosh.
Oh, it is beautiful. As a matter of fact, what I want to do is I want to just take you through a little bit of this and show this to you. So I'm gonna
Okay.
share the screen, and I'm going to make this. Well, I'm going to show you something you haven't seen before. Okay. So now let me remove this here. Okay, and so let me take us to full screen on this. Right now, this is that object we just saw. Let's pull out a little bit and check it out. So there you can see it, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now we see this here. Let's zoom in on just one section. Let's do this. Draw a line. Come in there. Look at this.
Oh.
Look at this amazing stuff. Look at this little area right here. This is all dust in this region. You can see something very important too, and it's right here. Daryl and I have talked about this extensively on our Skytrail live stream, and that is that whenever you have a cluster, it always seems that there is a stalk or a pillar that forms. Here's one here. Okay. Here's one here, a little one. Here's another one down here, another one over here, another one over here, and little ones on each side of this one. Okay.
The pillars have pillars.
The pillars have pillars. That's right. So the question
They call
becomes
the whole thing the pillars of heaven.
Pillars of creation, right? So now if we move down, you'll notice, look at these. More pillars. More pillars. More pillars. They're all pointing in the same direction. Is that odd? No, it's what's expected because the star cluster is off that way to the upper right. Here's a pillar right there. Okay. Here's another pillar right here. Here's another bigger pillar with a mini pillar in it.
I have a question about the pillars, if I may.
Yeah.
So, to me, when I look at them, it looks like it's like these bubbling clouds that are erupting and forming these pillars like they're alive. You know, you can imagine this. But is it that the gas or those whatever the dust clouds or whatever are collapsing, and is it the collapsing that's causing the pillars, or is it because they're erupting and pushing out?
That's close, actually, because the way it works is, okay, you can't see the stars that are causing these pillars, okay? They're way off to the right here in the cluster. But let's take this whole pillar right here, okay? The starlight is striking over here. This is an area that's dark here because it's dense. There's a lot of dark dust in here. So the starlight striking this is trying to push away all the dust and gas, okay? But that dust and gas is resistant to it, all right? Because the stellar energy isn't powerful enough to blow the very dense area away. It was powerful enough to blow all the stuff that might have been in here, down here somewhere, okay? This little dark area right here is very dense and was strong enough to withstand the onslaught of this very, very powerful radiation coming from that direction. So what happens is the densest part is up here in the front end. And that protects everything on the lee side. So now that's why you have these pillars form like this, because they are the densest little nodules at the front, and they protect what's behind them. Now, over time, what will happen is what we see happening here. Here, it's dense, but it tapers off, doesn't it? And it almost becomes nothing here. And that's because the starlight is too, it's not strong enough to dissipate this. But it is strong enough to reach the lee side a little bit, and slowly but surely is starting to whittle away at this stuff. But the stuff right behind it is powerfully protected by this denser cloud from that starlight.
And
so
what's happening in those denser parts?
Oh yeah.
Ultimately, you see that star at the very tip of that little pillar up toward the top.
Oh yeah.
There are stars forming inside those dark clumps,
And
and eventually they come out.
possibly star systems
Yep.
with planets and everything. That's correct.
Awesome.
Yeah. Now so this is what's interesting about this. And I know we only have a couple seconds left before a break. But I do want to show you one last thing. Sometimes it's fun just to kind of say what things look like. And doesn't this look like a wolf with his snout? There's his nose. There's his brow.
Oh,
There's his ears. And these are his paw. This is his paw.
you're looking
That's
at it from above.
That's right. And then here's his left paw,
Mhm.
complete with pads and nails. And I don't know what he seems to have vomited up a bird that he ate or something. I'm not sure, but it
It's
looks
much
like
best.
it. And there's his rear leg, right? I mean, this could be easily called the Wolf Nebula, but it's called
That's
the
really
Eagle
creative.
Nebula.
Mhm.
Isn't that cool? I saw that today. I was like, oh my gosh. Anyway,
Call it the Dingo
I
Nebula.
know. Isn't that something
Mhm.
else? It's the Dingo Nebula. That's right.
Mhm.
That is absolutely right. So yeah. So that is the series of events with the beautiful Eagle Nebula. And we saw, the Hubble Pillars of Creation, okay, which are here. All right. And we were looking up at this area here when we were looking at our little wolf. And there's the right-hand paw of the wolf, but you don't even see it, do you?
Mm-mm.
Because the dust is not really that obvious.
Yeah.
Similar here. This is the snout of our little wolf right there. You can see the snout of our wolf.
Mhm.
And so forth. So it looks more like it, but this is the one that actually looks the best not because it's just gray, but just because it looks very, very interesting like this. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. All right. So anyway, I have no doubt that we will have plenty more to talk about in just a little bit here. So why don't we take our break now, Tara? I think
great.
it's about that time,
Yep,
isn't it?
it is. Mhm.
And we will be right back after these words, guys. Don't go away.
Yes.
Hundreds of thousands of people have claimed contact. If you're met face to face with something so alien, that will change you. It changed me.
Strange things would happen. This was something that I kept buried for years.
On Saturday, April 29th, KGRA Digital Broadcasting and Virgil Films have partnered to bring you an event that could open your mind to new possibilities. Watch John Yost recount his story in his documentary, Alien Abduction Answers. After the movie, participate in a live interactive panel where you can ask your questions in real time. You don't want to miss this event. Go to kgradb.com to claim your spot.
Did you know 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated? If you struggle with focus, run low on energy, or when it's time to finally sleep, you simply can't, this can all be linked to dehydration, and Fuel Up has the answer. Our proprietary formula contains the finest cellular hydration with the strongest immune-enhancing natural ingredients. The Fuel Up system is made up of 3 different incredibly tasting varieties. Wake kickstarts your day with a jolt of caffeine. Play boosts focus while hydrating your cells. Rest not only helps you relax, but also rejuvenates your cells while you sleep. Here's what our clients have to say.
I really don't miss my coffee, and you can tell the difference.
So I'm gonna take it for the energy. I'm gonna take it for the play. I'm gonna take it, all day.
And it works. That's the thing. It works. We love it.
Take the Fuel Up Challenge now, where we offer a feel the difference money back guarantee. Fuel Up for life.
we alone in the universe? The most important question facing humanity is on the verge of being settled once and for all. The Mutual UFO Network has been at the forefront of this journey for nearly 50 years. Our members worldwide are dedicated to the research, documentation, and awareness that will shape the future of humanity. Won't you join us?
Hello, welcome back. As always, I'm here with Tara and Daryl. So what did you think of the first half of the show, Daryl? Was it pretty interesting?
It was okay.
Okay.
It'll do.
I liked it. I think it was presented well. I stepped on my toe once.
Ouch.
I should have known that question about cosmology. I did know before I misstated things.
Oh, no, you're fine. Tara, do I dare ask what you thought?
I'm learning stuff, so it's all good for me. So I say we
Okay.
continue on.
All right. Well, I was thinking that now, Daryl, might be a good time to do the deep dive for the coming spring sky. What do you think of that?
Okay, be careful what you wish for.
I wish for it.
I do too. Please let there be a deep dive. Please let there be a deep
It's
dive.
been so long since I get to relearn StreamYard every time. So I'm ready if you are.
I'm ready.
Me too.
Okay, here it goes. Okay, can you see the star map, the sky map?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Mhm.
Very good. Okay, this as usual now. This is at sunset, and we're facing west. And you see the sun is a little bit north of due west now. And that red line, as always, that's the plane of the ecliptic. That's the plane of Earth's orbit around the sun, or how we see the sun move through the sky in the course of the year. And that's also the plane that most of the planets follow pretty closely, all the planets except for Pluto, in fact. So you see Venus is close, Mercury is pretty close, Mars is close, and on up, the plane of the ecliptic, and it's distorted, but the green line is the meridian. That's the line that runs from north to south that passes straight overhead to the zenith. Now, the sun is about to set, and we'll give it a little time. You'll see the sun will set. You may have noted Mercury was to the lower right of Venus. It was about this close. Mercury rounded the corner in its orbit and is now dropping back into the sunset. It came from behind the sun, got up yay far, and then it rounded the corner in its orbit as seen from Earth, and it's now dropping back to pass between the Earth and the sun. Venus is still high up, about halfway up in the western sky, the west-northwestern sky at sunset. That's called the eastern elongation, because here's the sun and it's to the east of the sun. Venus will be at its highest, at greatest eastern elongation, I think in June, maybe in May, but I believe in June, when it will be a little bit higher, at which time it'll be the farthest it can get from the sun is about 48 degrees in the sky. So it's getting up there. But if you see it now, it's bright and it's beautiful. It's the brightest thing in the sky after the sun and the moon. And tonight, here's the moon just above Venus. You go a little farther up now, and you see that Mars is in Gemini now. Mars was way down here in the horns of Taurus, and even down here close to Aldebaran for a while. Aldebaran is a red star that's the eye of the bull, and that V shape is the Hyades star cluster, forming the head of the bull and the tips of his horns. And Mars has moved back in direct motion and is now back moving west to east across the sky. So it has finally left Taurus and is now right between the two twins, Castor and Pollux. Here's Capella in Auriga, here's Castor, and here's Pollux in Gemini. And farther over, we get to Procyon in Sirius and Rigel in Orion. And that is the winter circle now. The winter circle is about to set. And later at night, after Orion sets at 10 o'clock or so, Sirius will also set. And the only stars you'll still see will be Procyon, Pollux, Castor, and Capella. And once the western half of the winter circle is gone, what's left is called the Arch of Spring. And I also wanted to mention some days ago, if the weather cooperated, the Pleiades were sitting right next to Venus. And then they're dropping because this is us orbiting the sun, and the stars of winter are falling behind us, passing behind the sun to eventually return to the morning sky. So Venus was by the Pleiades, and it's now up moving into the horns of Taurus. And Venus is going to follow Mars on up into Gemini for a while. And what you're seeing here is this is winter going away. At the time a little bit. So here goes Orion. He is setting by 10 o'clock. Rigel is already set. Sirius is about to set. And in one more hour, Betelgeuse, all that's left above the horizon. And I'm going to get into a little mythology here. We're going to face south now and give it just a few more minutes. See, Betelgeuse is still just barely above the horizon. And look, right there, here comes the head of Scorpius. That bright star is Antares. That's the heart of Scorpius. And this gets into a mythology where the scorpion stung Orion and killed Orion. And the gods put them in the sky, and to make sure they never fought again, they put them as far apart in the sky as they could, so they would never fight again. And here for just the least little amount of time, a few minutes, and you need a dead flat western and eastern horizon, you can see, though, Betelgeuse and the heart of the scorpion are in the sky at the same time. And in just a few more minutes, well, Betelgeuse goes away, and Antares and Scorpius is taking over. So winter is going away, but the stars of spring are coming to the fore now.
It's galaxy season.
It is, exactly. You see that Leo now is on the meridian by a little after 9 o'clock, followed by Virgo and Libra. And here come the stars of summer over here. As Mark said, it's galaxy season now. We bid farewell to Orion and Monoceros, the unicorn, where the rosette is, and a lot Christmas tree cluster and the Cone Nebula and all that stuff is here. We bid goodbye to them, I guess, for the year on a recent stream, and now we're turning to look at the bright stars of spring. And whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Bear with me.
The whole world just shook around. Easy there.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I'll leave the Big Dipper where he is. Springtime, you've heard me say this before, in a band from up by Ursa Major, passing down through Cannons Venatici, the hunting dogs there, and then Coma Berenices, Bernice's hair, into Leo, Virgo, and down into Corvus. the brightest stars, excuse me, of the 1,000 brightest galaxies in the sky, 3/4 of them are right there. Um, and that's what we're focusing on now.
Wow.
And you give it a little more time. Here's, I'm sorry. Pardon me. Take over, Mark.
Okay. So as Daryl said, now I don't have any control of the screen because he's running this, but at this point, but as the summer sky comes up, we're gonna do like we did with when Leo was just coming up. All right, we strain to look at the eastern sky to see Leo and the galaxies there, and we're gonna do the same thing once we're through with all the galaxies in the spring sky, and we're going to end up looking for our summer objects. We're gonna the summer sky is just beautiful, and with the massive amount of Milky Way that we have, it's looking right toward the center of our galaxy. And when Daryl and I were, and Daryl, you remember this, we were talking about this earlier, when we were looking for ways to align the telescope before we had the automated system, we just had so much fun zipping to wherever we wanted to go and saying, wow, what is that? We better identify this. And Daryl would say, I think it's a Barnard object, which is from a catalog of dark nebula, dark dust in the sky.
Yes.
And then I would say, yeah, maybe it is. We're gonna have to remember where this was, and that was a lot of fun. But back to you, Daryl.
Okay, sorry about that. I had a frog in my throat.
That's okay. Better than having an antelope.
Yeah. So anyway, here by a little after 9 at night now, Leo is on the meridian. That's about as prime time as it gets. It's due south when you look up in the sky. The constellation below it, this long thing, that's Hydra, the water snake. There's his head, and that bright star there is called Alphard. That's the heart of the water snake. You get over into Crater the Cup, Corvus the Crow, down below Virgo, and you've probably seen before that when we get into Virgo and sort of in between Coma Berenices here and the tail of Leo and the head of Virgo, in this area right here is where the Virgo supercluster of galaxies is. We looked at the other night. Markarian's chain and M87, and M100 is up here. M51 is right here in Canis Venatici, below the handle of the Big Dipper, and M81, M82, Boday's galaxy and the Cigar galaxy, they're right up here above the head of the bear. So this is galaxy season, all this right here. And this is what we've been concentrating on recently. Mark, if you want to show any pictures, now would be a good time.
Yeah, I'm actually digging one up as we go here to see what we could find. Do
you need me to stop the SkyMint?
No, I can move it. Don't worry. I can get out of there. But I wanted to show some folks what we're looking at here. Okay, because it is galaxy season, what we do, we'll go look underneath, for instance, the hindquarters of Leo the lion. And actually, Daryl, if you can zoom in on the hindquarters of Leo the lion, show them the triplet, or where the triplet's located.
Okay. Well, come on.
There we are. You can see them there.
Okay, there's this is 95, M95, M96, and M105, if I remember correctly. And then the triplet, if I remember correctly, is these three over here.
It is 65, 66.
M65, M66, and the Hamburger Galaxy.
Right.
They're under 95, 96, and 105 are under the lion's belly, and 65, 66, and the Hamburger are under the lion's hindquarters.
Yeah. Now, to know what those actually look like in real life, real time, I will show you, because that's actually pretty cool. And let me show you right now. So this is the Leo triplet right here. Right.
Whoa.
This is the hamburger galaxy right here. Right. And one thing to notice is when you zoom in, you can see this dark lane of dust moving right across the center, and it seems to split. And then it has this weird shape at the end. Every time we look at these galaxies, we're looking at them at a snapshot in time. They interact with other galaxies. Okay.
Lettuce.
Right? Like this galaxy right here. Okay. This galaxy right here seems to have had some type of interaction because it's got some really strange warping to its galactic arms here. And then we have this one over here. This looks pretty regular. It has a nice smooth line to its dark dust lines around here. Now these lines, this is just the outermost one that you can see. It's a spiral galaxy, perhaps even a barred spiral galaxy. And so it'll have many such lines that kind of swirl around in the galaxy, just in the same way that we look at galaxies that have these dust lanes all throughout them. And that's what we're seeing here. This is just beautiful. And this, I just took this the other night, actually. I processed it the other night. So this is actually a very pretty shot. Yeah. And it's called the Leo triplet, you know. And we always try to, and we can always try to, bring out more detail. We can try to bring out some more detail in this, like if I do this, all right, and kind of say okay to that for now. You can see there's more dust out here in this one. Oh, look at that. There's some dust out there. Where'd that come from? There's some dust out here. Where did this come from? There's another dusty region down below here. So maybe these two galaxies interacted with each other at some point. And that's what's interesting. But if you notice in here, this is not the only set of galaxies that you see in here. Here's the full frame. Okay. We actually see another galaxy right here. Okay. Right there. Okay. We see another galaxy right here. All right. And another one right here. And so on and so forth. You're going to be able to count upwards of 5, 6, maybe more galaxies in this one shot. Again, this is 2 degrees across by 1.5 degrees tall in our view here. But that's pretty cool. That's really neat. So
very awesome.
There you go. So that is an example of what we do with the SkyTour live stream. That's an example of one of the objects that is available to you when you join and hang out with us.
Well, we've seen so many recently. We've done M81, M82, but A's Galaxy and the Cigar Galaxy and Ursa Major down through. We looked at M101 the other night down by the tip of the Big Dipper's handle. And M51 Whirlpool just below the handle, and the hunting dogs, Canis Meditici, and good grief, I lose track of all of them. M63, M64, the Black Eye Galaxy, down in Coma. M100 was a great view. There are just oodles of them down there, and we barely scratched the surface because Virgo, where the supercluster is just now getting high enough for us to look at later in the evening.
Yeah.
We did get one look at it the other night, and there's more galaxies than you can shake a stick at there.
I know. And just to point out, you mentioned Baudet's galaxy. When I shake a stick, here's one. Shake a stick at these guys. All right, check these out. Okay. This is Messier 81. All right. This is a beautiful spiral galaxy. You can see lots and lots of detail in this galaxy right there. And you can see there's a lot of orangey, reddish areas in here. Not that red spot is actually a dead pixel that they vary. Every camera has them. So but you see some reddish areas. These are areas of these are Orion nebulas, but in these galaxies. Okay. Even bigger than Orion nebula. They are star-forming regions. Now, speaking of star-forming region, possibly through an interaction with that very same galaxy we just saw, this galaxy has had some amazing things happen to it. This is called the Starburst galaxy. This is Messier 82. It's the other one of Baudet's galaxies. And you can see that there's this reddish material that comes out at the bottom and the top of the galaxy here. And of course, bottom and top is a convenience for us. There is no up or down in space, right? So when you look at this, you see how there's some strange reddish objects that are coming out. This is part of the process of interacting with another galaxy. And so that interaction has caused this galaxy to go and have a burst of star formation. So it becomes what's known as a starburst galaxy. And that's M81 and M82. And yes, there's another galaxy over here. Lest we forget, this little guy over here, a very interesting little galaxy over there, as a matter of fact. So, very interesting.
Your
anyway,
audio's a little choppy, Mark, just so you know. We're all having trouble with it, even in chat.
Is it? That's funny. I mentioned that to Bill as well, and he said it sounds fine at his end. So I'm not sure what that is, but okay.
That sounds better.
The audience hears it. Tara sounded fine.
Sounds better now.
Well, and
okay.
Yeah,
all right, so let's not play with things then, and make it. Let's let it stay where it is. Okay, so it could be the result of trying to show too many things too much, because there's so much to see, guys, that it's just,
there is.
It's crazy. I would love to show you the entire universe if I could, But now, now that we've seen some galaxies, one of the things I'd like to show you is this really interesting galaxy that we know of. In fact, it's a James Webb object. Obviously, we're in a James Webb world today. This is NGC 1433. This is a Hubble image. Okay, it's 46 million light years from the Earth, and it's a barred spiral, meaning it has a prominent bar through its nucleus, from which the spiral arms come off of, and so forth. And that's the bar. Now, I'm not sure if the bar goes this way and it's small, or if it's this way and long. So I haven't done that much research on this particular galaxy to know. But it's also known as a Seyfert galaxy. It's an active galactic nucleus, right? And that means that there's something going on in here. There's a tremendous burst of star formation going on in the nucleus of this galaxy that doesn't fit with other galaxies we see, other than others like this one called a Seyfert. That's Seyfert. Seyfert galaxy, yeah. All right. So and so this Seyfert activity in the center of this nucleus has a tremendous amount to do with what's going to happen to this galaxy in the future and how it evolves. But again, we're seeing a snapshot in time. We're only seeing a snapshot, right? Now, again, this, though, if you remember, this is the Hubble view. The James Webb Space Telescope has also imaged it. Ooh. And look at the difference between that and this.
Ooh.
Notice that we have this ring around this active nucleus now. Okay. Now this is MIRI, the mid-infrared instrument. So we're seeing lots of dust. All right. So where the dust is being emphasized, you see the dust around the outside ring. Yeah. So it's true that what you see here, okay, you see dust, but this looks, you see these dusty spiral arms there as well. But interesting how they show up here as well. Okay. With the mid-infrared instrument right there. And so we're seeing lots of dust. We don't necessarily see the star-forming regions as brightly with MIRI. The NIRI, the near-infrared, shows those better. But this is just a beautiful view of this amazing galaxy. Again, 1433.
I assume this showing the H2 regions also, or the star factory, so to speak.
They're there, but the MIRI instrument.
Where the red is.
Yeah, that's right. The red shows some of them, but the near infrared imager, NIRI, the NIRCam, NARCam, NIRCam shows those regions very beautifully, but MIRI shows them a little bit, but it shows more of the dust. Okay, remember this was NIRCam of this region of space, the M16, the Eagle Nebula. pillars of creation, and then this is Miri showing it. Notice the absence of stars.
Right.
They didn't remove the stars. It's just that the stars were not what the Mir cam was as sensitive to. Okay. It was sensitive to this dust. All right. So that's what we're seeing. So when we see this, and then we see Miri showing you this, we're now not seeing as many stars. So all this subtle yellow that you see in there, those are all stars. Okay. You see the brighter clumps of regions of the modeling of clusters of hot young blue stars in the outer regions of these arms. But in here, you don't really see them as well. And that's because Miri is not sensitive to those in particular. It's looking for this colder dust, and a hot star doesn't count, right? So it's looking for the cooler dust regions. So where there's a nebula that's cooler in the outskirts, it'll show it. But Neri, on the other hand, will show the nebulae as well, because it's a nearer infrared, closer to the visible spectrum than Miri's looking. But it's really very, very beautiful. But there's another one that, again, speaking of all this, it's just crazy because there's so much stuff to see and so many interesting objects to show that it's just astonishing. And I'm going to show you some more here in just a second. So this is, all right, so there we go. That is NGC 1433. NGC is a catalog of objects, stands for New General Catalog. When I was getting my degree in astronomy, we used NGC designations. We used special catalogs. We did a lot of work with stars in particularly. So we used special catalogs like the SAO, Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory Catalog, and the BD, the Bonner Durchmusterung, which is a German catalog. I actually have one of those in the back room here. I can't believe I have a BD catalog, but I do. What for? I don't know. Its pages were full of dots, and it's a negative, so they're all black dots on white paper.
Cool.
Now the next thing that's interesting is that the James Webb has done remarkable work when talking about these galaxies, and one of the things that I want to show you in particular is the differences, the comparisons. I showed you Hubble with the pillars of creation. I showed you Hubble versus the near infrared versus Miri. Well, let's take a look at another galaxy called IC 5332. That's another catalog, IC, letters I and letter C. That stands for Index Catalog. Okay. Why so many catalogs? I actually
a lot of stars.
I don't know. A lot of people doing the discovery and cataloging. And why didn't they just not put them in one big catalog? I don't know.
Phone book.
I know, right? Yeah. It's like having one big phone book of everybody on Earth versus all the little phone books for all the cities.
Yeah.
Right. And towns. Yeah. It makes sense. So we're going to look at a galaxy now that's 29 million light years from the Earth, and it's 66,000 light years across. All right.
Wow.
And I'll just put that up here now. This is it. This galaxy is beautiful. You can see this is a Hubble image. You can see this beautiful red star forming region here. It's one of the bigger ones in this whole galaxy. There's tons of little small ones in here that make themselves evident. Tons of nebulae everywhere on the order of the sizes of the Orion Nebula. This is more like the size of the one in Messier 33 in Triangulum. maybe even the Eta Carina Nebula on our galaxy, for instance. So this is a very large nebula region. But how about the James Webb? How does the James Webb view this same galaxy? Now we're going to look at it in the light of Miri, the mid-infrared instrument, and show you all of the dust that's in this galaxy.
Did you name this galaxy?
This is, yes, I said this is NGC 1533. 153. No, sorry. Sorry, it's Index Catalog 5332.
Okay.
Okay, that's what it is. No, that's fine, because if I named it wrong, I'm correcting it now.
It's nice how we see it face on, too.
Oh, it's a beautiful face on galaxy. That's right. Index Catalog 5332. And this is how Hubble sees it. And this is how the mid-infrared imager views it.
Oh my gosh.
Now, look at that.
Wow.
All of the dust shows up now. Now it's like taking off the skin of the galaxy and showing you what's inside. Isn't that crazy? And so if you can see, like, you can actually see, for instance, like this whole spiral arm complex with this bright star cluster here and this beautiful nebula. Where are they here? Well, you can see there's some view, but remember, Miri is more sensitive to the dust than to the stars. So it's as if the stars vanish. Okay?
The whole nucleus vanishes.
Yeah, the whole nucleus vanishes as well. And you can see what's in there. Now, what I find fascinating in this nucleus, fascinating, utterly fascinating, right? We come through here and we say, nucleus is right about there, right? So when we move this over, it looks like there's nothing in the center, right? So could there be a supermassive black hole in the center of this galaxy? Maybe, you know, maybe that's what makes galaxies for all we know, right? Maybe galaxies grow them.
You can almost, I was going to say, it's so three-dimensional by that look. And it almost looks like it's spinning a vortex going down to this blue center. It's amazing.
Yeah. And you do see the sweeping motion that makes its way toward the center, sweeping motion, the curvature, right? Now, that sweeping motion is visible when we see stars too. So it's easier on our eyes to see it. Okay. But that actual sweeping motion comes from something called differential rotation. When the galaxy begins to rotate, what it does is it starts to rotate, but as it rotates, the stuff on the outside lags behind a little bit. So it starts to sweep behind the leading edges. And so over time, it kind of sweeps behind and drags behind. And the galaxy kind of, I don't want to say wind up, but it sort of winds up a little bit. But we discovered in looking at galaxies like this that the galaxies are so old that you should have had them wind up billions of years ago. They should have wound up and become tight and the spiral arms non-existent from being wound so tightly a long time ago. Why didn't they? That's where Fritz Zwicky, the famous Swiss astronomer, began to theorize that something must also be in these galaxies that is making them act like more of a rigid disk as they rotate. Now, clearly, they're not a full rigid disk, because when we look at this, we see that it has sweeping motion to the arms. There's a sweeping behind, okay? But that sweeping behind is too little for the amount of time this galaxy has been here. So what's causing them to be differentially rotating, but at a much lower rate? And the answer to that has to do with dark matter. And
I knew you were going to say that.
Of course.
But that's was the concept, right? Yeah. And so Zwicky was one of the pioneers. And his daughter Barbarina joins us in our Sky Tour live stream events actually quite a bit. That's very nice to see her there. So it turns out that when we look at galaxies like this one we were just looking at, we see that they're rotating almost like this rigid disk, and that's something that we have to figure out. That's another thing which messes with us, and we call it dark matter because we don't know what it is. We don't call it dark matter because it's black. Okay, so and that's
really I call it how many angels can dance on the head of a pin.
And you might as well, right? Because it is. I mean, well, Daryl's right, because it's like, it seems like to be a cosmological fudge factor, because we don't really know what dark matter is. And the acceleration of the universe outward is something that they're calling dark energy as responsible for. Dark energy is a repulsive force which pushes everything away from everything else. Wow. Swallow that one for a minute and start to think that one through. And
I've seen where Some are pondering now if dark energy may be coming from black holes. Don't ask me how, but that's what some people are postulating.
Yeah, I think it's the sum total energy. That's again, it's a cosmological question, not a astronomical question,
Right.
partially astrophysical question.
But
And go ahead, Tara.
it could also be coming from different dimensions as well, right? I mean, they could be bleeding in and having some kind of fractal math going on, and
there's no reason to say that's impossible. Let's put it that way.
Or you could just say, we don't know.
That's the truth.
And that's where how many angels can dance on the head of a pin comes from.
6. 6.5 on a good day.
Well, it ultimately turns into philosophy, I guess. And
it does.
You can say whatever you want when you're talking philosophy.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So
someday, hopefully, we'll find out.
I think we will. And the James Webb is actually helping us to learn a lot more about these things too, which is very fascinating. I'm really, really impressed with the Webb telescope. And Tara, I've been enjoying your questions tonight. So you've been doing a great job. Yeah, I've been liking them a lot.
I have a question on the telescope.
Okay.
Am I correct to understand that it can detect molecules? Is that what it's doing? So can it determine molecules in the atmosphere of planets, like what's in the atmosphere of exoplanets?
I am so glad you asked that question. You know why?
No. I want to know the answer.
Yeah, because we actually did talk about that at one point, if you recall. Like for instance, let's look at this dust grain. Okay, this is a typical grain of interstellar dust. You see, each of these squiggly lines represents cosmic rays, bombardment by UV radiation, and things like that. And you'll see that when that happens, there is an effect that we can see, and it shows up in the spectrum of the cloud when we're looking at it with a tool like the James Webb Space Telescope.
Right.
And when we see these chemicals signatures in the spectrum, it tells us what the cloud's made of, for instance. Well, the clouds are very rarefied areas, meaning they're not very dense, but atmospheres around planets are much denser. So the James Webb can probably see them a little better than it can see these faint, very, very, very tenuous clouds. Now, keep in mind that we see them when the planet is going in transit around its star. So if there's a star, when the planet goes in front of the star like this, right here where it's just starting to go onto the star's face, and right here when it's coming off, there's a point where we can see just the atmosphere reflected in the star's spectrum, because the atmosphere absorbs some of the starlight, and we'll see what are called absorption lines in the spectrum of the star, briefly showing us that there's something there that's not normally there. And those absorption lines are exactly the types of things that the James Webb has already seen in multiple cases. And it has actually spent a great deal of time looking for and finding the components of some of these exoplanet atmospheres.
They've seen water, haven't they?
Yes, they have. As a matter of fact, I am going to bring up something right now that I just happen to have here, which I'm glad I had. So let me do another share here of the screen so I can show you this. Okay, this is something. Okay, there's an exoplanet called 1256b. Okay, and this is using the near infrared spectrometer and MIRI, okay, to detect certain elements in this atmosphere. And this is exactly what they've seen. All right, so now you look over here. Daryl said water. Yes, indeed. Water was detected. All right, right here. Water was here. All right, water is here. Methane, CH4. Carbon monoxide, CO. carbon monoxide here. Now, see, each element has more than, sorry about all these little arrows. Each element has, each molecule has more than one absorption line, more than one chemical signature in the spectrum that it shows. It shows multiples. And sometimes, in fact, in most cases, you just say, okay, for carbon monoxide, we should see 3 lines in the spectrum here, here, and here at these exact places. And they look, and if those are there, they can identify it for sure as carbon monoxide. So we have a line here, we have a line here. Okay, yep, that's right. Water has lines here, 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 and here. And in our atmosphere, with our telescope here, when I use my spectral system, I can actually see the water vapor in our atmosphere. And those are called telluric lines. That's Telluric. Yeah. And these telluric lines are lines of water vapor in our atmosphere. And the James Webb can do it as well. And so here you see what it did. It's looking using both the near-infrared spectrometer and the mid-infrared imager, mid-infrared imager. You can see all these different molecules that it's seen in here. And it also sees silicates. In other words, dust in the air.
Yeah, I was going to say, those are all gaseous or vapor except for the silicates.
Yeah, dust in the wind. Yeah.
That's all we are.
Yeah. So it's pretty interesting how this works. And we're going to talk about the fact that in just a few minutes, we're going to talk about the fact that this actually had the emission spectrum here for you anyway. So we're going to talk about the fact that the James Webb Space Telescope also was able to explore TRAPPIST-1, and that's coming up as well. So we'll be looking at that one shortly. TRAPPIST-1, of course, you might remember, is a incredible little red dwarf star that actually has a bunch of 7 planets around it, 3 of which are in the habitable zone of the star. And they're the 3 consecutive ones right next to each other. Boy, talk about a busy solar system if there's life on all 3. Especially if there's life that's intelligent. That would be even better. So, yeah, so that's interesting. So let me just get us out of this for a minute here. I had this here. Where did this one go? Where did this come from? I'm trying to get rid of it. Just a sec. All right. Funny. Well, actually, we do have another one to go into here. There's another object I want to check out with you. And that is... all right. So we saw then how the galaxy can literally have its basically its skin taken off, and you can see what it's made of. And that was the MIRI, the mid-infrared instrument. Now, one of the values of the James Webb is that it can look at galaxy clusters and show us this incredible detail in these galaxy clusters, like this one.
Ooh.
Everything you see in here is a galaxy. All right. Now, what do you notice about this image that's strange?
I can say it looks like it's warped. Everything looks warped.
Einstein rings.
Yeah. What you see here on the right, you'll notice it looks warped, as Tara said, and as Daryl's alluding to. There's a cluster of galaxies that are very, very, very far away. And then closer to us, there's another cluster of galaxies whose mutual gravitational attraction is warping the light of the distant cluster. And so you see these rings that all tend to make a circle around the middle of the cluster to the right. And these are, this is a perfect example of gravitational microlensing. All right. Wow. Now, the galaxy cluster that's being lensed is 6.3 billion light years away.
Oh my gosh.
6.3 billion light years. Now, in SkyTour Livestream, we've looked at galaxies just over 100 million light years away. But 6.3 billion light years away, those galaxies are moving out at such a rate, at such a speed, that all of their light is shifted into the infrared almost. So we only see very little in the visible spectrum. We only see the remnants of that light coming to us, and see it only in the infrared. All right. Look at the just below that circular warp to the right. Look at that galaxy that's stretched in that weird way. Do you see it looks like a triangle?
Yes.
Isn't that weird?
We are probably seeing some galaxies multiple times too.
It's possible that some of the micro lensing, if they're right near the center, then they could bridge across. That's correct. I'm not sure in this image though, but this is the gravitational lens cluster is fascinating. I particularly like near the right edge you have this arc, this kind of warped looking arc, and you see it's next to a white galaxy. Okay, and then right to its right you see a warp. It's actually following that galaxy's curvature on the outside. That's probably because that galaxy's gravity is participating in the warpage of that particular galaxy that's much further away. Isn't that cool?
It is. I like the one that looks like a little snake with an egg in its mouth that's next to the triangular one. See,
Yeah,
it's
to the
little
left
long.
of it. Yes, that's a nice, long, stretched out galaxy.
Dumb question, I suppose, but we're actually seeing the curvature of space-time there, aren't we?
Yeah, you're seeing the curvature caused by the gravitational concentration of the closer galactic cluster. That's right.
Wow.
Now, which ones are closer? Which ones are further? Well, I would say that this one and probably this one are probably closer. The white ones are probably a closer cluster, and the red ones are probably further away.
Okay.
Which is why the red ones, which have a higher redshift, meaning that they're redder, everything that's redder is probably farther away than these other galaxies here. So this cluster here is warping this set of galaxies that are much further away. Now it's possible, as Daryl was pointing out, that this line on the right side near that other white galaxy, okay, could be a mirror of the left side, lower left side. A small, it could be a potential mirror. And if that was the case, I'd expect to be able to see it complete somewhat around, but I don't see it. But that's okay.
And not only all that, but if we are seeing multiple images of background galaxies, we're not necessarily seeing them at the same time. That is, each grab of a galaxy, say we were seeing half a dozen images of the same galaxy around that central source. Every one of those galaxies, as we see them, could be at a different time in that galaxy's lifetime.
Yes. And as it is, look at the white galaxies. Those galaxies are closer to us. So you're seeing them as they were however many hundreds of millions of years ago. But these galaxies behind them in the red, you're seeing those as they were 6.3 billion years ago. Okay. So to that extent, it's also a time machine that way. So I think that's really cool. But this is probably one of the nicest gravitational lens images I've seen so far from the James Webb Space Telescope. It's an impossible image to get with any ground-based telescope, because we can't see the galaxies being warped with any ground-based telescope, because you have to look too far out into the infrared to see them. I think it's fascinating when you look at these things, right, guys? You look at these things and you say, wow,
yes.
We're seeing things that have never been seen before.
Yep. If you look at like the Hubble Deep Field, the very dimmest, reddest things we can see. If you keep going deep enough into the Hubble Deep Field, well, you won't see much of anything. Yeah. But everything that we could not see in the Hubble is in this field.
Yeah, and Technically, yeah, that's correct. Exactly.
It was so far down in the infrared that Hubble couldn't see it anymore. And yet here it is in pure infrared. Well, we see tons of stuff that was hidden before.
And the nice thing is the James Webb can see back to a point just around 13.6 billion years in the past. So galaxies with redshifts that are going to be that far. So we're seeing galaxies that formed only 300 million years after the universe began. Now it became transparent somewhere around 300,000 years after the universe was born. So between then and a couple 100 million years later is when galaxies formed completely in our model currently. I think the model's wrong. I think that we're going to discover from this very research, we're going to discover, well, just how wrong we were.
Well, that's exciting.
It is, isn't it?
Yes, I think so.
It is, yeah. Now, one thing about that is, okay, if we want to stick with galaxies for a second, let's go to 2ZW96. What's that? That's this. Okay.
Ooh.
This beautiful object that we're seeing here, this is the James Webb Space Telescope catching galaxies in collision. Okay. There's a spiral down near the bottom that you can see. And of course, this was NIRCam doing this. All right. And this, you can see the spiral down below. And then you see up top an amorphous blob. Well, these were probably two spirals, and through some interaction, one spiral is being completely disassembled, probably by the more massive one of the two, or depending on the angle of the collision, maybe they are in a process of merging, right?
It looks like a baby, like the back of a head.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a strange object.
It is indeed. And the thing that's interesting about this object is it's in Daryl's favorite constellation, Delphinus.
Say what?
This is 500 million light years away in Delphinus.
Oh, Delphinus.
Yes.
The dolphin.
You say, yes, tomato. Yeah.
Potato.
Okay.
Potato.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the antenna galaxies we looked at.
Doesn't it? Yeah, and I was looking at that thinking these do look like the antennae. Let me see if these were the antennae. When I jumped into the little tiny placeholder image, it was no, that's not the antennae. That's a cool thing. Look at but I want you to look around these galaxies. Almost everywhere else, you see, and wherever you see those little spikes, the little diffraction spikes that Daryl mentioned earlier, those are stars. Everything else is a galaxy.
Wow. Mark, I think we're coming up on less than a minute here.
I think we are.
20 seconds.
Yeah. Well, that said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this little foray that we took you on through the wonderful objects of the James Webb Space Telescope. And we'll have more to see because there's more to do. All right. And it's never ending with the James Webb. So on behalf of me and this beautiful team here, I want to thank you guys for being here, Tara and Daryl. I will see you next week, I'm sure.
Good night, everyone.